Everyone, please give a very warm welcome to our next speaker. We are talking turnips, and that's pretty spectacular. Our next speaker is Amy Negrette. Her favorite Animal Crossing neighbor is Graham. He's also pretty cool. I am so excited to hear this talk. And everyone, please, in the Twitch, in the Discord, give a very warm welcome to Amy Negrette.
Hello, everyone. Wow, there we go. So isn't Animal Crossing such a nice, chill place with this super friendly looking dude here? It'll all turn out great, I promise. Now, the thing about Animal Crossing is you can see truly impressive and beautiful 5-star builds. So let's look at a few, like this one, very pretty. This one, also pretty. And this one, if you ever want to see something truly better than the thing that you're making, go to Reddit because they will show you. So the real question is, how much did all of this cost? In time and in money, it looks really expensive. And let's look at my island. Yeah, I have a 5-year-old who likes to dump all of his trash on my island. So mine is an amazing mess, and still the game is super chill. Womp, womp, womp. The real question is, how do we fix this? With bells. Bells, 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 bells. That's the tweet. So that's where we are. Again, hi everyone. I'm Amy Around Below Negrette, a cloud economist over at the Duckbill Group. I used to build things, and now I just dig through people's receipts. Just as a bit of context, I've been doing this, building things as applications for over 10 years, going on 13 now. And this room in my house is designed after my old office when I worked at NASA. So let's talk about bells and how to get them. But that's not what it says on this title card. So we're going to talk about cost management. Cost management isn't just about doing the job cheap, but it can be. But everyone knows how to slash and burn your bill. You turn everything off, servers, lights, you go home. But of course, we're not doing that. That is, on one hand, ill-advised, and on the other hand, unbridled madness. What we're going to talk about, as far as cost management, is about efficiencies, operations, and accountability. What is the most justified and repeatable way to get what we want with an acceptable balance of cost and effort, and who does that belong to? Or, in gaming terms, resource management. So let's get on our island and tell our cost management story. Now, I want to take a break for a second because no one goes into Animal Crossing to do math, but that's a thing we got to do. So everyone take a deep breath, buckle up, and let's go. So the process of making money is basically the same as saving it. First, we need a target. You know what I like? I like bridges. And this is a nice, and by nice, I mean the cheapest bridge that we can get. And it's still going to set us back 98,000 bells. And what are the two best ways of making money in this game? Fruits and turnips. Look at the math, folks. I have a cherry island. That means my island grows cherry trees and it sells extremely low. Now, selling on your home island will get you 100 bells, but selling a different fruit will get you 500. A mature fruit tree We're not even talking saplings here. Will take 3 days to produce fruit, and each time produces exactly 3 fruit. Again, I said there would be math. We can do this twice in 1 week, and now a friend had given me apples to sell. So to get to 98,000 bells, I would need 65 trees to do it in a week. I don't really have the land for that though. So maybe a few less trees. I can take it down to 35 and do it in 2 weeks, 20 and I can do it in 4. And that's an infrastructure decision. Valid, but it still requires me to check in twice a week. So that's what we're going to call engineering effort. The good thing about this process is that it's steady and it's predictable. But we're not here to be steady and predictable. Let's get a little weird with turnips. So the other good thing about fruits is that they're essentially free. They just take time. You don't need to buy more fruit in order to grow more fruit. Now let's meet our local turnip farmer, Daisy May. She shows up for exactly 7 hours a week between 5 a.m. and 12 p.m. on a Sunday to sell you any number of turnips that you want. Or more specifically, that you can carry. Your buy price varies each week between 5 and 150 bills, but you can sell them back between 5 and 650 bills, maybe if you're lucky. Again, Animal Crossing math, it's great, and it's not exhausting. There has been a ton of work being done to build these predictive models against turnip futures, words I officially said on a DevOps conference. Again, super chill game. I don't sound stressed out just talking about it. To get to your own personal deserted island predictive model, and to get that model to match, you need to check in anywhere between 1 to 12 times in a week, because you can sell turnips on your island twice a day for different prices, once in the AM and once in the PM. And that's assuming you don't have a bad week, which is the only weeks I ever get with my prices. And there have been plenty of times my turnip prices never got higher than a few bells over my buy price. A lot of times I would buy at nearly 100 and I would sell at 86 because I make great decisions. So, assuming you don't lose money like I just described, you can get upwards to 13 times your investment. Now, more math. On average, the sale price of a stack of turnips is about 90 bells, at least in my own anecdotal experience. If you happen to get a spike, it usually happens between 4 and 5 days into the week. And that's already checking prices 7 to 10 times to get an accurate predictive model. And that's, if you're going to sell conservatively, you can really sell at usually about 150 bells per turnip. So you'll need to have 654 turnips to get to that 98,000 bell target. That's 66 stacks. That's assuming you're spending at 90 bells per stack. A stack is 10 turnips. That's still 5,940 bells. And that's just the actual fiscal investment. That is not counting infrastructure or engineering effort. You can only carry 40 stacks max, assuming you aren't carrying anything else. And if you are going to another island to sell, then you better hope that person is a very good friend of yours and is willing to let you do multiple trips. If you do one of those turnip queue things where people line up to get really expensive turnips, then you're looking at one trip, if at all. So if you decide to do it over 2 weeks, you really should be only worrying about those 40 stacks, so a stack of 400. And finally, let's talk risk assessment, because that is the one thing that turnips absolutely has. Fruits don't go bad if you just store it in your house or on the ground or basically anywhere on your island. My island is littered with cherries that just fell down. If you miss a day of selling turnips, however, they all go bad simultaneously. If you attempt to time travel with your turnips, they all go bad instantaneously. So you need to make sure that you sell them before Saturday at 7 p.m. because they spoil at Sunday at 12 a.m. And between those hours, not 7 p.m., 9 p.m., the shop is closed and you can't sell them. So you're stuck with turnips that you know will eventually just spoil. So breaking it down, the timetable was updated since I obviously spoke on my last slide. The last one was the assumption was if you only harvested once a week, but if you harvest twice a week, you can do it in half the time. So that's upwards to two weeks for fruits, definitely 1 week on turnips. On engineering, or the actual active effort of doing the harvesting or the visits and the selling, you need to do 4 harvests on fruits. And for turnips, you need to do this check anywhere between 1 to 12 times. The other thing is about harvest. I don't know about anyone else, but when I get into a serious harvesting game session on Animal Crossing, takes me about half an hour each time. If I'm just dropping in to check turnip prices, I can get that done in 5 minutes because I don't get distracted by other things. Now let's talk infrastructure, or the actual space and resources you need to do all of those things. You need 153 free squares in order to grow enough fruit trees to do this in any reasonable amount of time. And that's not just free squares anywhere, it's contiguous free squares. You need a huge orchard space in order to do all of these trees. You only need as many spots as turnip stacks. So it's significantly less space. If you decide not to put any on the ground and just keep some of them in your inventory, then yeah, that's even less space that you need. And finally, risk. Risk for fruits is extremely low. The prices never change and they never go bad. So if you skip a week because you have to go on site and deal with clients who are complaining at you, then you can easily just check in all of your fruits later. They'll still be there. Shake your trees, move on with your life. As for turnips, the risk comparatively is very high because if you miss that window, again, you went outside, maybe your internet's not great for a week, you can lose that entire investment. Anything you sunk into those turnips, they're gonna go bad, and they're gonna go bad overnight. So back to real life real quick. What the actual crap does that have to do with cost management? You're building out a cost management project, you're basically managing resources, just real ones attached to real money, and you can manage those costs the following ways. First, match it against time. Are these costs consistent over days, or is it weeks? What is your time box, and is it a steady rise, or are you looking at pricing spikes? Pricing spikes could happen because you're doing some massive infrastructure changes. Maybe you just get a lot of usage or something was misconfigured overnight and you just ended up with a couple of days of a lot of spend. That's a thing that happens to all of us. No use beating yourself up to it, just fix it. And engineering effort. If the overhead of running architecture or resource, including engineering time, licensing, and all of those attached expenses are more than your savings and does not account for the usage growth, it's not worth doing. But that said, if you aren't tracking things like engineering time or licensing or attached expenses Those are the things that can explode without you looking at it. And infrastructure, what is that virtual server costing you really as far as engineering hours of fees? Is there a managed service that couldn't be cheaper for you? Have you actually passed that threshold where managed services aren't actually doing you any good anymore? These are all completely valid questions to ask. These are questions you should ask every quarter, just to make sure that you are on the right track as your company grows and as your infrastructure spend starts evolving with your usage and with what your project decisions are. And finally, risk. What happens if you don't do any of it? How much is it going to cost you if you don't have proper governance and accountability? Do you know where your spend is going? Do you know for sure your architecture is going to scale appropriately or get overloaded? When is any of this going to get cost prohibitive? Even if you build things perfectly, there will be a time where things get cost prohibitive and you need to change. This can be due to factors completely outside of your control. It's still going to happen. So what is going to be the cost of moving out of that infrastructure? What is the cost of updating? But now, for fun, let's build a cost optimization project together. Again, let's talk timetables. What is your time box? I would suggest quarter after quarter if you're just doing this for the first time. Unless your spend is hockey sticking out of control, you can look for gradual growth. Find your top 5 services. Which one is growing the most? That one's probably going to be your best candidate. Engineering effort. Designate a lead for this project. Give them the authority to make changes and distinct actionable goals. If they don't have the power to put down goals for a team and any team can just come back with, yeah, we're not going to do that, your costs are just going to go and keep rising and there will be nothing you can do about it. If you don't have any of this information, this is your first project and that's the information you need to get. Infrastructure. We know who's using the most expensive service now, assumedly. How is this service performing? Is it being fully utilized? Are there pricing tiers that we can take advantage of without drastically changing the underlying architecture? Have new offerings been released since this service has been launched? Maybe it's time to talk about upgrading. That's always look for upgrades. AWS released something that made metrics significantly cheaper over the past couple weeks. There was a time I delivered a talk on best practices and they updated those as I was delivering the talk and I had to do last minute changes. These things happen. It's always good to be aware of them and whether or not it would cost you more or actually save you money. And finally, risk. Again, what is the price of not doing this work? A lot of teams will say outright they don't believe the changes are necessary, or they don't have the hands to be able to do that kind of work. And it might even be true. How quickly is your spend going up? And can you get away with just swallowing these costs? Some companies can print money, but those are very few and far between. Can your cost optimization project survive volatility? What if something comes up, because it will? Are you going to be able to pivot? Will you have the initiative and the authority to get the project back on track at a later date? Or will you have to hold all of those hockey sticks? And just like other ways in Animal Crossing, there are more ways to get more bells. And there's always more ways to get more savings. Look at your contract. If you can update it with any amount of discounts, you should do it. If you spend a lot on one service, go talk to your account team. If you have a big, you have to be a big spender to get a lot of volume discounts, but they do exist. There are also credits you can get depending on your usage and frankly, the relationship with your account team. They'll be the ones to be able to find those for you and work with you in order to get them. Providers always update services all the time. Again, AWS may have pushed a change log since I started talking. Who knows? They've done it before. Sometimes These changes come with a new feature that specifically addresses your personal use case at a fraction of the cost. And sometimes it just comes with an updated pricing tier. Maybe you can fall into a cheaper one. And if you can't, talk to your account team. Maybe they can work with you to maintain your legacy pricing rate. And finally, all providers have some form of instance reservation and usage discount for specific resource types. If you're running on them, see if you can see yourself running on them, you can have a significant discounted coverage against certain types of compute or certain types of storage. So those are definitely worth checking out. So you don't have to wait until a bill is spiraling out of control before you start doing cost management work. Let's say that you share your island with a bunch of other people. Like hypothetically, I have a aggressive 5-year-old who likes to cut all my trees down and just dump all of his items when his pockets get full. That's something you have to manage. If you have an engineering team ready to launch a product, you have to be able to answer the following questions. Are they in charge of this once it goes into production? Do you have a way of monitoring spend by use? Will adding these monitors cost you more in the end because of a way you've architected something? And ultimately, who is in charge of your bill when it becomes a whole bag of spoiled turnips? So the bottom line is that cost management isn't about savings, it's about resource management. It's about making informed decisions about the way you spend your bills. And is there any questions from the audience?
Oh my gosh. Everyone give a big round of applause in Twitch and Discord and everywhere you can to Amy. That was really like, I don't think about cost management a lot. And now I am. And I also think maybe I do think about cost management, but I didn't know it. Yeah. So we do have one question. And I'm going to ask it like I know what it means, and then you tell me if it makes sense.
Perfect.
Are there service cost trackers to be notified when those kinds of updates pop up?
No. And that's what makes it painful. And that's why this work is a headache when it doesn't need to be. Because why would any provider tell you you can get something cheaper by doing nothing? Why would that happen?
You know, that's totally fair. I feel that. And I saw, you know, I'm going to call him a friend of the stream, Corey, live tweeting your talk. So I'm sure there'll be questions there that you'll be more than happy to address.
Everyone should have a performance review on Twitter, by the way.
Yes. Everyone, if you do have follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the speaker Q&A channel.
I do want to address how to figure out if service you're doing has discounts. There's no way to get an alert from that from your provider itself. What I do is that because I'm an engineer at heart, I like to over-engineer any solution to my problem. I build alerts that scrape the blog for the services that I use the most.
Okay, yeah, that's smart. Here's another question. How do you figure out what your costs might be without spending a lot of money?
Go into your billing console of your provider of choice. You can filter out your recent spend. So that's usually within the last 12 months by service. Then that's how you get your top 5 services. The problem is if you hit these providers through their cost APIs, those for some reason get expensive, which is not something I'm totally chill with. But you can actually just make it part of, if you have to do a monthly report of some kind, just go in, go scan through which accounts you're responsible for, see what's spending the most, and break it down that way.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. The question got edited, which is why I laughed, because now it says, how do you figure out your costs might be without spending a lot of bells?
But don't play Animal Crossing at work. It's only good during this week of the year.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, thank you so much, Amy. We loved it. Everyone give one more round of applause for Amy Negrete.